Hey everyone, if you don't know who I am, my name is Mr. Klein, and this first video that I'm going to show you is to teach you about the IA for IB Chemistry coming up this year. Now, normally we would have met in the spring, and during those meetings, we would have taken time to actually go through how to start your IA. Unfortunately, we didn't have that opportunity, and so now these videos are to do that with you, um, remotely. So, what the summer assignment looks like, it is a chance for you to really get to start working on your IA. There's nothing due when you get to school. I'm not allowed to like assign you work over the summer and collect it. I need to go over it with you in class starting in September, and I will do that. This is a chance for you to get a head start, though. And I know a lot of you have a lot going on this year. We don't know if we're going to be in school or not. We want to sort of, um, you know, try and get the ball rolling with this. So the first thing you need to do is you need to enroll in the Google Classroom using this code. So when you enroll in the Google Classroom, it'll bring you up to here. This is the Google Classroom. This is what it looks like. And so far, I've only posted things related to the IA. So go ahead and pause the video and write down this code and enroll in the Google Classroom. Once you've done that, the second thing that you're going to try and do is you are going to go to the post that is titled IA PowerPoint. And I'm going to go over this with you now. Normally I would have you do this on your own and we would discuss it, but I'm going to sort of go through the PowerPoint with you now and talk to you about the sample IA that's posted. And that's going to be your homework, is going to read that sample IA. So I've used this term IA a lot. What does it really mean? It stands for internal assessment. The external assessment is the test that you take at the end of the year. The internal assessment is a lab report. You do a long, independent lab report. It should take you about 10 hours to do this lab report. You write it up in 12 pages. You submit it. I grade it. I send it off to IB. They grade it. Their grade, is the true grade that you get. It's called moderation. So let's talk about this internal assessment in a little bit more detail. We're part of Group 4. Group 4 are all the sciences. This quote here, while the scientific method may take on a wide variety of forms, it is the emphasis on practical approach through experimental work that characterizes these subjects. They really care about this. The IB cares about you being able to carry out experimental work, and that's what the IA is about. The IA is to show that you can do your own piece of experimental work, write it up, analyze the data, and come up with something that you did in class. They want you to have experimental skills. It's important that students are involved in an inquiry-based practical program. So you need to come up with your own lab experiment. Now this isn't just going to happen out of the blue. I'm going to guide you through this so that you will have, sort of been led to the point where you're ready to do your own lab. And you'll see what that looks like. Here's a quick overview of what the internal assessment grades look like. It's 20% of your exam grade. The idea is that you're going to do a single practical experiment. It takes 10 hours to do this. Again, your paper will be moderated. That means that I send it off to IB and they grade it. They can change your grade. They have the final say. I have to say that I'm a pretty good grader overall. It's been pretty close, my grades, to what they give. Your write-up should be between 6 and 12 pages. But to be honest with you, talking to other people, it should be 12 pages. It could even be 12 pages single-spaced. Generally, it's the usual 12-point font. If you go above 12 pages, they actually take off points. They want you to be concise. Okay, so this is just an overview of that 20%. This talks about, how long it should take you. The lab experiment and everything should take you about 10 hours. I give you 5 double periods, sometimes maybe 6 double periods to work on this. So you have a lot of time to actually do this. And when you get there, by the time you're ready to spend time doing the lab, you know what you're going to do. It's not like you show up and it's like, what should I do? That's really the purpose of this summer assignment. The internal assessment safety. So, you need to use common sense. If you want me to order a chemical for you and it's something really dangerous, I won't be able to order it. You can't kill any animals or anything like that. That's pretty obvious. But just in case it wasn't, you can't harm any life really while doing this. I've had students work with bacteria though, and you can kill bacteria, and that's okay. They don't really mind that. Okay, so we're an SL course, but it doesn't really matter. They grade the IA on the same criteria. You'll see what the rubric looks like in a little bit. I'll show you what the rubric is. You don't have to have a perfect paper to get a perfect score. They have these bands where they grade you, and I'll show you what those look like. But as long as you're close to perfect, you can get a pretty good score on this. This is hard to get a good score, and I'll be honest with you, students really struggle with this. So, if you can get an 18 out of 24 on this test, on this paper, then you're going to be amazing. That's a great score on this. So let's talk about the possible tasks that you could do. I would love for everybody to do a hands-on laboratory investigation. That's really what this is about. But if we're not in school, or for some reason you don't want to do a hands-on laboratory investigation, you can look at data. Like you can look at a database that has information on different chemicals, and you can take that data and you can analyze it and graph it, come up with a hypothesis, and then see like if there's trends in the data that nobody else had recognized before. You could even do a simulation. There's these things called PhET simulations. Just erase that. PhET simulations. There's a website, and this PhET simulation, it's open-ended, and it allows you to sort of do an interactive open-ended simulation where you could, collect data and then analyze that data. We'll go through like the different practical activities that you can do, and I'll show you some examples so that you get an idea of what it is that you're supposed to do. But let's take a look at the parts of the paper and the rubric. So the first thing is the personal engagement. So this is students trying to make the IA something unique and something special to them. It doesn't have to be cheesy, but it should be showing that it has personal significance to you. This also shows up like when you do a lot of background research and when you come up with a unique procedure. That's all part of personal engagement. The maximum points you can earn for personal engagement are 2 points. The next part is called exploration. This is basically the background and the methods. The idea is that you will frame the research. You will write a research question and a hypothesis. You'll give background into the investigation so that it sort of frames it out and makes the understanding deeper of the reader. And then you have to go and list your methods, your procedure. You have to say what your controls are. You have to go through and do a highly appropriate method that really answers the research question. That's worth 6 points. The next part is analysis. So this is where you present all of your data. You present any of your uncertainties. You present any graphs, any data tables, any raw data, any qualitative data that's important, things that you notice about the experiment as it's occurring, pictures that you take could be included. This is worth 6 points as well. And then the evaluation. So the evaluation is your conclusion. You sort of cite the data and say if it supports your research question or not. You talk about, like any strengths, any weaknesses. You talk about improvements and extensions. All that's part of the evaluation, and that's also worth 6 points. The last part runs throughout the whole paper. It's the communication. So did you use scientific terms properly? Did you have good grammar? Did you use sig figs? Did you use correct units? Was the structure appropriate? By far, and this is the last part, this is worth 4 points, by far, where people lose most of the points is during the evaluation and during the analysis. That's where people are losing points. That's the hardest part of the paper right there. My advice to you is when you're thinking about a research question, and we'll get more into that in the next video, when you're thinking about a research question, really what you need to think about is, can I collect data? And will that data be able to be analyzed? Because if you can't collect a lot of data and you can't analyze the data, you're not going to have a lot to talk about here, and that's going to be a problem. So for homework, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to read this paper here. It's called Investigating the Oxidative Rancicity of Polyunsaturated Oils. It's one of the IB papers that was given as an example. I want you to read it, and I want you to grade it using the rubric. Now, when you go on Google Classroom, what you'll see is that it's right here. It is IA example to read. It's the second link down. And if you look at this, it's Investigation 7E, and I've attached a rubric here. And here's the investigation. So you need to read this, you need to grade it. I'm going to read it and grade it, and the next video is going to be me going through why I gave the grade I did. Let's see how close you come to that, and we'll also talk about the moderators and what they gave. All right, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. We'll talk about this paper next time.